Welcome back to our Florida podcast. I'm your host, May, and every other Monday, I share about Florida's unique wildlife and ecosystem or current events in fact impacting Florida wildlife.
Hi, and I'm Kaylee, your other co-host, and I share stories about Florida history and different cool people and places and everything.
All right, so this week's episode is all about invasive species. I kind of want to break down what invasive species are, why they matter, and we're going to kind of start with the feral hogs, Burmese pythons in the Everglades, the lionfish invading coral reefs, and Cuban tree frogs, possibly. These are all just some of the invasive species. Florida has numerous unique opportunities for invasive species, and I say opportunities loosely. It's not a good thing. According to the U.S. Forest Service, an invasive species is a non-native, exotic/alien organism to the ecosystem that it occupies, and its existence in that ecosystem causes or is likely to cause harm to the economy, environment, or human health. This new species will thrive at the expense of native plants and animals. Invasive species not only consume native species, but can also compete, spread diseases, and most of the time they don't have any natural predators. Overall, invasive species are truthfully like having that roommate from hell that never cleans up, eats all your food, and manages to take over the entire apartment. That's an invasive species in a nutshell.
Has lots of babies.
Yeah, pretty much. And once it's established, you can't get rid of it. Why is Florida such a hotspot for invasive species? When did invasive species make it to Florida? So it seems to basically start in the 1500s when Spanish explorer and conquistador Hernando de Soto led the European expedition into the United States, starting in Florida and continuing through Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, North and South Carolina, and Mississippi. Essentially, he traveled all through the southeastern parts of the United States. In May of 1539, De Soto landed 9 ships with over 620 men and 220 horses in South Tampa Bay. These ships carried priests, craftsmen, engineers, farmers, and merchants, and basically the families of these men from anywhere from Cuba, Europe, and Africa. So basically a wide range of people and basically like a wide range of jobs, essentially, different crafts.
Yeah, they're trying to make a colony out of it, right? Like, so you need you need the people to build a society.
Exactly. So, truthfully, Kelly, this might be, maybe this guy is someone that you'll talk about later on.
Probably should.
But truthfully, Hernando de Soto is some bad news. I'm going to say it like that. I read a bunch about his expedition, and overall, he was a real POS type of guy, which seems like there's like a common theme and common pattern here, but so on May 21st, 1542, it's been about 3 years since he's landed in South Tampa. Soto died of a fever in the native village of Guacoa. Guachoya. Who knows? It hasn't been precisely determined where he died for sure, but it seems it was off a bank of the Mississippi River. And why I mention that is just because there seems to be like kind of a lot of debate and conflict of interest. I don't know. On like, did he die off the Mississippi River? Did he die in Louisiana? Where did he die? There just kind of seems to be like a lot of uncertainty, I guess. But at that time of death, De Soto owned 4 Indian slaves, 3 horses, and 700 hogs. Because of the 700 swine owned by him, De Soto is credited with introducing feral swine into the United States during this expedition. So,
that's a lot of pigs.
That's a lot. That is so many.
Yeah.
As you can imagine, they escaped and realized that Florida has some incredible landscapes, and so they have continued to survive and reproduce. And again, that was just a lot of them.
Yeah.
And that's after being there for 3 years. And so, how many did they come with? And also, how many reproduced in that time? So, how much would their population grow from what they brought? I assume they brought a decent amount. But also, how much can you fit on ships? I don't know.
Same. Yeah, that's all my thoughts. It's like, well, they probably brought a lot. There's 700. But they do reproduce quickly. And
they do, yeah.
Also, yeah, there's only so much room on ships. So, I don't know, maybe it's like 50 and now it's like 700 3 years later. Who knows?
Which is crazy. It's so fast. Yeah.
It's a lot of hogs,
though. So he owned all those hogs. Of course, they've escaped. They have realized that Florida is great, and they have made Florida their home at this point.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but hogs aren't native to North America, at all.
Correct.
Because there's, oh man, I can't remember what it's called. It looks like a pig, but it is not a pig. In Arizona.
Oh, I know what you're talking about, but I don't know the name of that thing either.
I read a kid's book about it at a javelina. The javelina is not a pig, it's a different thing, and that's actually native. But I don't
Huh,
think pigs
that's cool.
it's also called a collared peccary.
I'm gonna look that
But
up
yeah,
real
they're
quick.
native to the Americas. It looks like a pig, but it's not. I read a whole kid's book about it at a
Did
Trail
you read
Angel's
this
house.
kid's book as a kid, or do you remember this
No,
as
this
an
was at
adult?
the Trail Angel's house last year.
Oh, okay. I was like, that's a very distinctive kid memory of I read a book about pigs, basically.
No, no,
Okay.
no.
Oh, they're pretty cute. It looks like Pumbaa,
Yeah. Yeah, they're very
basically.
warthog looking, but they're not a
And
pig.
warhog, yeah.
Yeah, they're a peccary.
It's kind of cute.
It's a separate family of mammals.
Huh. Why, interesting. They're really cute. I think their noses are cuter.
They're pretty cute, yeah. I actually didn't get to see one in the wild. Yeah, pigs are native to Eurasia and North Africa, which makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
It just seems wild that they're not native in some ways because like they seem so a part of the environment and they do thrive so well. Way too
Yeah,
well.
they do. They thrive so well, and they've been here for forever. So,
Yeah.
and I mean, I guess at some point too, we kind of adopted it as well because we've got all the domesticated pigs. Like, you know, you can you can show pigs. You've got pork that's being produced
Yeah, of course.
for consumption and things like that too. So it does seem definitely very bizarre that it's not at least a tiny bit native to here. But yeah, completely invasive species, and we credit DeSoto to that, which I don't think he should be credited to anything, but you know.
Oh, again, I mean, credit doesn't mean it's good. It doesn't mean it's good credit. It just means
That's true.
yeah, we
That is
definitely need to
true.
do an episode about him. I remember looking that up a little bit because I know like it's a very big deal in Tampa and even Bradenton, where he grew up, for like the Hernando de Soto parades and stuff, and that there's always some debate. And I would like looked into it and I was like, oh, it seems well founded. Anyways, but yeah, that sounds like a history right up my alley episode, huh?
Right? I also included this because I think you might find it interesting, and maybe you already know it too. But additionally, for anyone curious, this expedition marked the beginning of a hostile relationship between Native American tribes and Europeans. As well, Eurasian diseases may have been introduced to Native Americans during this expedition, such as like measles, smallpox, and chickenpox. So not only did he bring the hogs, he also brought the diseases potentially.
And I think
And
theft
also
and rape.
started a hostile relationship, so that's super fun.
Yeah, I think a lot of death and theft and rape as well.
A lot. He was not a cool dude.
Yeah.
So now we know. Moving forward on the timeline, invasive species have made landfall in Florida by hitchhiking on ships and shipping containers, as well as the exotic pet trade and ornamental plant imports in the 20th century. So sometimes they've been intentionally brought through, you know, from explorers, expeditions, things like that. But they've also just been brought through on our ships. You know, Florida is waterlocked on all three sides. I almost said all three, but there's another side. While most invasive species hitch a ride on ships, the Burmese python is a notable example that was introduced by being released into the wild, or technically and also, but you know, or escaping from captivity. So Burmese python started as part of the exotic pet trade. These massive snakes have made themselves right at home in our warm, humid, sunny, and mild winters, creating a perfect breeding ground. Burmese pythons originate from Southeast Asia and the exotic pet trade, and most escaped during Hurricane Andrew in 1992. So they kind of come from a little bit of everything. It's like they were originally part of the exotic pet trade, and then mass amounts of them escaped during Hurricane Andrew. And so basically at that point, they've stuck around. So pythons are brought here because they're super cool and exotic and people want to own them. And of course, there's money behind, so let's do it. Why not? But what ends up happening is these new owners who know very little to start realize these snakes are getting bigger and bigger. And so they decide that they can't manage it anymore. And then they end up being released into the wild, or again, they escape. So you've got the exotic pet trade that's playing in this. You've got the fact that there's a massive hurricane that came through and several of them ended up being escaping
Released.
captivity.
Yeah.
And then you've also
essentially.
got people that are like, okay, cool, I have a pet, but like I'm terrified of my pet because it's a giant snake. It's a couple 100-pound snake potentially. And I don't know what to do and I'm way over my head and it's not as cool anymore. Because realistically, honestly, people buy pets and then they're like, okay, this isn't cool and I'm
they're
gonna just set it
expensive
outside
and-
now.
Yeah, requires special
Exactly.
care. Yeah.
So there's lots of reasons. Doesn't make it cool, but and that's what's basically happened with Burmese pythons. So Burmese pythons are an apex predator, meaning no natural enemies in the Everglades. So they are just living their best life, consuming your native species and reproducing at a rapid rate. Typically, a female will lay about 50 to 100 eggs a year, and then these pythons have, in this time frame, mind you, they've only really been around since like the 90s, late 80s or
Yeah.
so.
So they're like
They have
35-ish years old around there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I read about the pythons and stuff like in my textbooks in environmental science and stuff, and it was
Mm-hmm.
in our textbooks at that point. So they've made a big impact, and part of that impact that they've made is that they've reduced the small mammal populations in the Everglades by over 90%,
Holy
and that's just
crap.
the Everglades area.
That's a lot. That's so
90% for
much.
our small mammals. That's insane.
Yeah, so like possums and armadillos and
But not even just our small mammals, they will go ahead and also eat like our own native snakes as well. Like they just
yeah.
don't care. They eat like everything,
Yeah.
basically.
And like the Everglades thrives because it's so many small species that are all extremely like interconnected. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, exactly.
Oy.
I was almost used the term like keystone species, but I
Hmm.
don't really want to compare them to that in a sense, you know?
No, it's not that they're a keystone species. It's
No,
yeah.
but like they are going after like basically like the Everglades is like the Everglades itself is like a keystone species.
It's
It's
like
kind of like I
taking
describe
out
it.
the whole bottom of like the structure, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
If all the
exactly.
apex predators are eating the smaller things and they're wiping out 90% of the food source for everything further up, like wild.
Exactly. Yeah, so they have done some damage. I mean, I know you've watched, oh my goodness, what's his name? What's that guy that we watch videos of? Is it like Garrett or something?
Yeah, fishing Garrett.
Fishing Garrett. He's really cool. He's a funny guy.
He's the yoink guy.
He's the yoink guy. Yeah, he goes out and he's always looking for different wildlife, and his videos show a lot of different ones. But he'll also go over like he goes through removing invasive. So like he goes out, removes invasive the pythons, and then I think it's like a toe-keyed gecko. I think is what he talks about a lot
Mm-hmm.
too, and them also being
Chameleons
invasive.
sometimes.
The chameleon sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, iguanas.
All this. Cool dude.
Yeah.
He does also do videos where he shows how to cook some of them too, which
Was
kind of
that
watch
that's
them.
a different guy though that cooks them.
I thought they were the same guy, just different
No, it's a
accounts.
different guy that was cooking the iguana eggs.
Both of them are cool accounts. Okay.
They are fun to follow. Good Florida wildlife interactions.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Native to Indo-Pacific, the lionfish, a popular aquarium fish that was released into the Atlantic. Lionfish are beautiful but deadly. They have massive spines and appetites and can eat dozens of fish in a single feeding. They can decimate juvenile real fish populations and threaten our coral ecosystems. And again, they have no real predators in Florida's waters.
And their spines are poisonous, right? Like you
Yeah,
get
they're extremely poisonous.
yeah,
I
they're
don't
in
know
bad news.
what.
I said they're bad news.
Yeah, they are very pretty. Have you seen them before?
I have. Yeah, they're really pretty. I've never seen them like in the wild, but
No, me neither. I don't think we've ever really been in that type of water, really, or at least I haven't.
I mean, they get
To
them
see
in
them.
the Gulf and everything. So for my high school, I did IB, and you had to do like a community service project, and there were two kids that worked together, and their project was going out and catching lionfish because it was invasive. So we're like, wait, half of us are like trying to organize some crazy project, and you guys are going out fishing all the time. But yeah, they caught like a couple hundred or 100
That's
lionfish
so
over the summer
cool.
as their community service project, which is yeah, it's very cool. So they're
I
definitely
want to do
around,
that.
right? Like I didn't have the
That sounds
resources
so
to
fun.
do that,
You
but it
know,
does
that's
sound
something that
cool.
we should do. Well, I feel like it's not something we could do right now, but we should do like clean up things and like, see how we can go through and remove invasive species and stuff.
Jared really wants to do fishing, and there's a lot of tilapia in the Mayaca River that need to go.
Yeah, didn't realize that tilapia are invasive also.
Yeah.
And it seems so odd because it feels like such a big thing that we consume. And so why? It's kind of like the pigs. I feel like, why isn't it normal,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know. It's weird.
Been here so long, so established.
Exactly. Well, and that's also something that I didn't look into it, but I am always curious, like invasive species are known to, like once they're established, it's extremely hard to get rid of them. So I'm also wondering, like, once some of these invasive species do get established, is there at any point that we would get to a point when removing them would actually be a problem? And then they could be considered a native species almost, like we're almost needed to have them because we've gotten so used to it. Maybe it's a little bit of a crazy
It might be
scenario,
like a 800
but
years in sort of scenario.
yeah, and at that point it's like, how many species did it remove in it
Yeah.
doing that? And so we kind of need the invasive to make up for the fact of not having the native.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. It's something I
I
think
don't
about way
either.
too often, truthfully.
No, it's valid. I definitely, yeah.
Yeah. The green iguana is another perfect example of the exotic pet trade and illegal releases. Typically, they are seen in South Florida's tropical climate. I did recently get to see one in West Palm Beach area. It was literally just hanging out on the side of a building. It had like a little ledge, and it was just hanging out on top of there. It's not great to see them, but I was very excited to see one because I've always heard about it. I've always known about it, but I've never had to see one.
Creep me out.
They are really creepy, dude. If I had to walk below them and like worry about that consistently, I think it'd be a very different story. But I saw one, and it's so quiet, you can't hear it move. But it is a big lizard,
It's a big ass lizard, and they swim too.
dude. I feel like it's like a bear, like they kind of do everything.
Yeah, they like can move pretty quick. They swim. I saw them when we were in South Florida too. We like went and did we talked about this in the Purple Gallinule episode. Um, but I was walking around some areas that were like wetlands that were like retention pond, like kind of glorified retention ponds, but also there were a lot of like native birds and stuff there, and there were a ton of iguanas, and you'd be like, oh my gosh, it's out there on a tree. How'd it get there? And then it like crawls down and starts swimming over, and you're like, oh, okay, that's how it got there. Gross. Oh no,
It's
I'm not
like,
a
are you
fan.
concerned? Or it's like, are we concerned about the gators that are actually in our water? Or are we actually more concerned about the iguanas?
I don't like the
Who
iguanas
knows?
way
I
more.
don't
The
know.
gators are cool. Iguanas,
I think the iguanas scare me a little bit more.
yeah. We're not trying to make
So
sense, guys.
iguanas, it doesn't. It does not. It does not. Iguanas originate from Central and South America, and a lot of times when you hear people talking about the iguanas, eventually when Florida gets colder, iguanas will freeze and appear to be dead. And so when they're up in trees or if they're hanging up on something, they will fall. People will go up to them, assuming they're dead. They'll wake up, and sometimes have gone like after people, or they're known to fall on vehicles or even fall on people because, like I said, they just freeze. They fall right over. And they're not nice. Not like sometimes they're a little stunned, but then like usually once they come back to, they were just mean. Like there's so many stories and news stories about them going after people, them going after people's little dogs. Like if I lived in South Florida, I think Gracie, my dog, would absolutely lose her mind. It'd be worse than having a cat, like stray cats in the neighborhood.
Oh my gosh, stray iguanas.
Stray
Oh, they
iguanas.
have to
I
be a
also
nightmare for gardens and stuff too, I bet.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Are they
I would be so mad if they like ate my garden.
they're probably omnivores, right?
I believe so. Let me look real quick.
What do iguanas eat? Leafy greens, vegetables, and fruits.
No, they're herbivores.
Yeah, so they would be some frickin'
They would destroy our gardens.
yeah.
Absolutely destroy them.
But I think that they're known to eat like frogs and lizards and stuff too. And like small fish, maybe.
Let's see.
Destroy property, harm native ecosystems, and can pose health risks to humans. Burrowing, landscape damage, infrastructure damage, power outages. They'll get into transformers. And then compete with native species and predation on native species. Eggs of native birds.
Insects, lizards, and basically kind of like anything small. So like they're classified as herbivore, but it doesn't really seem like they actually kind of are.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like if they're doing the herbivore thing, then they're either destroying property or they're eating other native things that native animals need, or they're eating bird
Oh my God, they eat
eggs.
sea turtles.
Little shits.
Crabs, fish, rodents, hatchling sea turtles, birds, lizards.
Gross.
So not cool. They suck. Okay, well, now you know. So, not all, in the beginning, I said, not all invasive are animals. So, an example of that would be the Brazilian pepper tree. The Brazilian pepper tree was introduced as an ornamental plant and has now spread to over 700,000 acres in Florida. They will form in dense thickets that will choke out native plants and increase the risk of wildfires. I'm pretty sure, dude, I might send you a picture to have you double check it. But I'm pretty sure I have one growing in my yard.
They're everywhere. They're
It's like the
absolutely
thing that looks like
everywhere.
they're compared to Florida's holly, but it's not actually holly, right?
Yeah, it doesn't have serrated leaves. It has like
Yeah.
smooth leaves, but it is like small, dark green, kind of bushy,
And they
kind of
got like some
tree-like.
red berries on them.
Mm-hmm.
And it grows very quickly, very well.
They grow prolifically. When you start cutting them down, they smell very strongly. They set up my allergies off. I'm very bitter about Brazilian pepper.
Do they? I didn't look into it. Maybe I should have. But do you know if they serve any use? Like, can we do anything with them?
I don't think so. I don't think you
Also,
can eat them.
why are they called a Brazilian pepper? They don't have a pepper. There's no pepper.
They smell kind of peppery.
Oh,
Let's see.
so helpful.
Not my episode, man. Oh, they're in the cashew family. Gross.
Interesting.
Yes. Brazilian pepper tree is a member of the family Anacardiaceae, which includes poison ivy and can cause allergic reactions and respiratory illness in sensitive individuals exposed to fluids, pollen, or volatiles released by the leaves, flowers, and fruits. Yeah, I have a strong. If you eat the berries, they may cause vomiting and diarrhea, and the sap may cause dermatitis and eye troubles. So, yeah, I don't like them. We had a couple in my ag class, like my freshman year, that we had to like cut down with hand saws and shit. And it set my allergies off so much. And I think you can like you gotta cut them way back, and they grow back really quickly. They grow prolifically, and so I think to like get them to die, you have to like bore into it and pack it with salt or something, and hope that like kills the roots. But it's very hard to kill them. They're bad news,
That's
and they're
crazy.
everywhere. Like anytime you drive like alongside the road and stuff, you can see them along fence lines and stuff. They just kind of blend in. It's another thing that seems like it's just supposed to be here. It's just Florida being green, but yeah, they're not.
Well,
Not
yeah,
native.
they don't look pretty, but like they do look, I guess you could say, like nice, and it is a
They're
very
green,
green
yeah.
that looks like it fits so well. It's still perfect. Yeah. So these are just a handful of invasive species. In reality, there's thousands of invasive little creatures that have made Florida its home, regardless of the havoc they create. And so they just exist. In the beginning, I mentioned like Cuban tree frogs. Those are going to be like those really large white frogs that you've seen. They're just very buggy looking, is the way I feel about them. They got big bug eyes, basically. But they eat our little tree frogs and our natural frogs that we have. You've got the different lizards. I think, Kelly, do you remember the name of the lizards? But basically, like the lizards eat our green lizards, like our little green lizards that we have.
The green
Our little
anoles are like
geckos.
supposed to be here.
Yeah, which we see like less and less of all the time.
I know.
I do have one that hangs out on my back porch area, and I absolutely love him. And his name is Fred.
Yeah,
and I keep an eye out for him.
What we see a lot of, or what I've noticed a lot of, is the brown anoles, and they're native to Cuba and the Bahamas, as opposed to the green anoles. That's actually a really good point. I haven't seen nearly as many of the green anoles in the last several years.
No. I was so excited when I saw that we had the one, and I haven't really seen too many others, and I don't really see them that often, but I was definitely very, very excited.
Yeah. Lizards were actually one of the things I missed by like the end of the AT.
Okay, I learned that last night. Jared was talking and telling me that he was a little freaked out and a little concerned when he moved to Florida and seeing all the lizards everywhere. Like he was very concerned that there would be lizards like everywhere. And I was like, what do you mean like lizards aren't everywhere? And like I had no idea. I thought that everyone had lizards. And he's like, no, like
yeah, they don't like the cold. No,
which
there
I
were
guess
some
makes sense, but
there's some in the southern part of the AT, and the AT has these little orange newts that are really, really cute. I probably sent you some pictures of them. So you would get those sometimes. But yeah,
so
by the
cute.
end of the trail, I was like, there's no lizards. That's what I'm missing. Like there's no little like skirting in the leaves around you. I think lizards are really cool. I like them.
I do too. I like them a lot. I would definitely miss them as well.
Frogs, I love our tree frogs. The Cuban tree frogs make me so mad, and I get them in the house over here all the time. I've sent Megan so many pictures at like 10 o'clock at night, walking into the bathroom, and there's like a lizard, or not lizard, a Cuban tree frog right on the railing, right next to the toilet. And I'm like, oh no. Fun fact, to get rid of them ethically, you can grab them and put like a numbing cream on their back and then stick them in a bag and stick them in the freezer, and they just die slowly, like they just like go to sleep.
Fact.
Fun fact.
She shared this with me. I unfortunately have not brought myself to do this, mostly because I hate catching them.
Oh, I do too.
I just don't like touching them. I don't want to touch them, truthfully.
I don't really spend a whole lot of time catching them out in the yard. I only get the ones that are like in the house. The
So
ones
I
that are
also
in the
have
house,
so many
they
bugs
go.
that I kind of need the bugs to be consumed.
See, now the
at my
geckos,
place.
the like geckos and wolf spiders, I mostly let be unless I really can't ignore its existence, especially the wolf spiders. The geckos,
Yeah, but
I'll
I
shoo
think
out to the front yard so that way Elliot doesn't get tempted. The cat doesn't get tempted to go after them.
I think the tropical geckos that we're used to seeing, like the ones that are almost translucent at night and stuff, I don't think those are native to Florida.
No, really?
I don't think so. No, I think they're called a tropical house gecko, and they're not technically native from what I understand. And it
No,
sucks
you're
'cause they're
right.
kind of like, they're freaky, but they're kind of
They're
so
so cool.
but they're very not native.
Native to sub-Saharan Africa. Huh.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got like 30 of these in the garage in the front porch area.
We had one
I absolutely let
last
them do their
night.
thing.
The only lizard, or I'm sorry, not lizard, but technically gecko that we have that I think is actually native is the Florida reef gecko.
Sounds cute.
And they're like little brown ones. They've got kind of like a stubby tail.
That's actually a lot less cute. I'm not gonna lie.
Significantly less cute.
They're really little though.
Yeah, they're very, very little.
Interesting. Well, you learn
I think they only
things.
get like 2 inches long. They're really little.
Interesting. Yeah, well, I've got a lot of the house geckos, and I do appreciate them for eating the mosquitoes.
I do too. We actually had one in the house last night, and I usually try to put them back outside because the lizards are always in the house, but it just disappeared into a crack in the house, into the abyss at this point. And if it makes it out, it makes it out. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
If anyone's listening from out of state, they're just completely appalled by the critters we've said live in the houses, basically. If you're in Florida, you're like, yep. And if not, you're just like, the spiders? The spiders are in the house? I'm like, well, it's kind of a losing battle with like 20 oak trees in the yard.
It is, I know we've said it, but like I really did not realize, like, I'm like, how many species do we have in Florida that are actually ours? I feel like most of the things that we grew up like learning and like, oh, here's this wildlife and here's this bug and everything else, as an adult, I'm like, none of you are actually from here. So like, what is actually from here? Because I don't think I've seen them. Like the reef gecko that we actually have, I don't think I've ever seen one. Which granted, they're tiny. I'm not sure if I ever really would, but I don't think I've ever seen one.
No,
So it's like, how many native species am I really seeing on a daily basis here? So just a thought. But because of the amount of invasive species that we have, Florida spends millions and millions of dollars each year on preventing and removing invasive species. The FWC runs management programs, incentive-based removals, and public awareness campaigns. So an example, they've held events like the Python Challenge, where trained individuals compete to remove the pythons from the wild. Reporting app, like I've Got One. So it's I've Got with number 1, which I've never used it. I gotta look into it. I might do a video about it to kind of share more about it. But this allows the public to report sightings of invasive species. It's been described as kind of like a Pokemon Go, but for ecological protection, basically, which I thought was so cool.
Awesome. I love that.
And I need to get it and see how I can use it. But some of the things that we can also do just to help, part of being a Floridian and doing our part to keep native Florida safe and beautiful, it's never okay to release domesticated or exotic pet into the wild. You can plant as many native species as possible in your yard. For any listeners who may be boaters, be sure to clean your boat and gear to prevent hitchhiking aquatic invasive species. As well. And I think the biggest thing that really is so simple and yet underrated is report sightings. It's literally the easiest and probably the best way to start protecting Florida, because we need to know when invasive species are spreading and when they're moving to different parts of Florida. If iguanas make it more towards, Sarasota, Tampa area, and they're slowly moving from West Palm Beach onwards, then, we need that information. We need to track that. We need to make sure that other parts of Florida, they're prepared for it, or that we can start trying to stop it from happening. Whatever the case may be, reporting the sightings is by far the easiest and the most important when we're trying to protect our native species. It kind of, it feels like see something, say something,
But we're
Every time I'm like, oh,
snitching
you
on
report it.
non-native bugs and animals, and that's fine. We can, yeah.
Yeah, there's no guilty conscience here for that. Yeah. I don't know. It's what makes me feel like every time. Truthfully, a lot of simple things. And I think in the future, I kind of want to do like, on our social media, if you follow us, I kind of want to do like some postings on like, one, how to use the app. What does the app look like? Because I've never used it. I don't think you have either.
I didn't know that
So,
that existed.
I didn't either. I was so cool. And maybe I don't know. I gotta kind of see how good it is. Well, who knows? But also want to talk about like, different plants. I know we were just talking about a family member. What plants can be planted in our yards, and different things like that. Maybe like a demographic, something to put out there. That's easy to see, and some basics. Neither one of us, I mean, we like growing things. We both have like our gardens and our herb gardens and things, but by any means are we
Oh, we're not
professionals.
No, we're experts in any way, and definitely have a lot of work that we could do on getting more. I'm pretty decent at pulling the non-native plants out that I don't want, but I'm not so good at
For sure.
planting more native
Planting.
species. Try to let the grass grow up some more, but yeah, and it can also be tough too if you're like in a subdivision. I feel like most of the plants that go
HOAs,
in,
yeah.
yeah, I mean a lot of the palm trees and stuff that go in aren't even native. So, which is crazy because, like, Florida's tree is like the saw palmetto, but most of the palmetto trees that are put in all these places are not native to Florida at all. So,
Right.
in some ways, it's like an uphill battle, but I do think every bit counts. And I think, too, like with it's important to recognize that these aren't things that we can control. They quickly get out of control, even if it's like, oh, I'm going to be the best pet owner. Well, if there's a hurricane or something, then like, and it might not even be the individual person's python that's getting out. It could be like the pet store or like the people bring them in. And Andrew, like if a whole bunch of them get out, like that's out of your control. You can't control living things. So the same thing, being mindful about like, okay, if we're going to plant something, Brazilian pepper started as a landscape thing and now it like takes over. And there are some really beautiful things that aren't supposed to be here, and the problem is like it really takes out the native species, and when you start taking out native species you start really limiting the biodiversity, and if you don't have a very diverse ecosystem then this starts to collapsing and have major issues. Illness can spread through things faster. There's a lot to be said about like having a diverse ecosystem really improves the health of it, so it matters. I think everyone doing their part can really help. And I think too, I love the idea of the app and just reporting stuff, because if we're all going out hiking and recreating and everything, that's how many more eyes on it than just like scientists that can only make it out so often that are also like in labs that are also doing this, that, and the other. I saw lots of signs like that on the AT, especially in the Smokies. They had like some sort of lizard or newt that wasn't supposed to be there, so they had pictures of it. They're like, "Hey, if you see this, let us know." I thought it was,
Oh, that's so cool. I feel like
yeah.
we need some maps, like South Florida, like South Florida usually has like the iguanas and stuff. And I haven't seen them up in Central, and you haven't really seen them in Tampa, Sarasota, Bradenton area, which is, good. But like I feel like we need maps to like be like, here's where it's super populated. Like I need a Google map for invasive species.
Yeah. Very cool.
Well, that concludes this week's episode. You did a fantastic job wrapping it up, because I was
Thank
going
you.
to say the same things that you said,
Well,
and
thanks.
then you beat me to it, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. That's good. That's great. So thanks for listening to our Florida podcast. This is it for this week's episode. We hope you might have learned a little something today. In the future, I do want to talk more on invasive species and get into more detail. So if you have an invasive species and would like to hear us talk about it in depth, definitely comment that below. We've got clearly a whole list of that we can talk from, but if there's one that you have an interest in, or you don't think there's an invasive species that's being talked enough about, we'll talk about it. Why not?
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah.
Love that.
So leave a like, a 5-star review, comment, or email us at ourfloridapodcasts at gmail.com. And until next time, happy exploring and be kind and have a great Monday.
Bye, guys.
Bye.